Okay, so we're going to be finishing out topic 8. I believe we had a few more problems with that. And then finish topic 9 today. And we should have time at the end for some questions. Remember, our test was supposed to be today, but I moved it to Wednesday. So our test 1 will be next class. Okay, so on topic 8, what we were talking about last Wednesday was function notation. So remember, with function notation, we're given an equation and we're given x or y values to plug into our equation to find the corresponding point. So looking at number 12, we're going to be plugging in our values into this f of x equation. So f of x is equal to negative 2x minus 3. So for part A, f of 1 is telling us to plug 1 in what variable? X. Okay, if you see it in the parentheses, that's always the x value. So I have f of 1 is equal to negative 2 times 1 minus 3. Okay, so instead of an x, I plugged in a 1, and then I'm just going to simplify. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Bring down that minus 3. And I get f of 1 is equal to negative 5. How would I write that as a point? 1 comma negative 5. Remember, when dealing with function notation, your answer is always a point, x comma y. Okay. So for part B, what are we plugging in? 0 for x or y? X. So I have f of 0 is equal to negative 2 times 0 minus 3. That negative 2 times 0 cancels, so I'm left with just that negative 3. How would I write that point? What would be the point? 0 comma negative 3. And which intercept is this? The x or the y? The y-intercept, because x is 0. This is our y-intercept. Okay, what number am I plugging in for C? Negative 3. So f of negative 3 is equal to negative 2 times negative 3 minus 3. Negative 2 times negative 3 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. So that leaves me with the point negative 3 comma 3. Okay. And 12 still continues down here. Okay. So for D, now we're plugging in 1/2. So we have f of 1/2 is equal to negative 2 times 1/2 minus 3. When we're dealing with function notation like this and we have the fractions, you can right away change this to 0.5. Okay, that would be the same. Because once we solve out these problems, we're getting points, and it's always easiest to plot a decimal than it is to plot a fraction. So it'd be okay if you change 1/2 to 0.5. So simplifying this, negative 2 times 1/2 is negative 1. And then bring down that minus 3. And so we get negative 1 minus 3, which is negative 4. So in this case, it didn't matter because we got a whole number for our answer. But if I was to write this as a point, I could write this as 0.5 comma negative 4. Or 1/2 comma negative 4. Either is okay. What about for E and F? Instead of plugging in for X, we're going to be plugging in for Y. Good. So if you see a number after the equal sign in your question, that is always asking for Y. To plug in for Y. So we have, I'm going to rewrite our function as Y is equal to negative 2x minus 3. And then we're plugging in 10 for Y. So 10 is equal to negative 2x minus 3. What would we need to do first to get x by itself? Add 3, because remember we want x by itself. So add 3, so we get 13 is equal to negative 2x. And then what about our last step?
Flip the equation.
No. Yes.
I'm saying so the x is on the left side, sorry.
Oh, okay. Yes, you could do that as well. But either way, when we get to this part, you could just write x is equal to 13 over negative 2, or that could reduce to what decimal? Negative 6.5. So that means we have the point negative 6.5, comma 10. Remember, your point is your answer. Okay, same for f. We're now plugging in 21. So 21 is equal to negative 2x minus 3. We're going to add 3 to both sides, and we get 24 is equal to negative 2x. Divide by negative 2, and we get x is equal to what? Negative 12, which leaves us with the point negative 12, 21. Okay. Okay, now looking at number 13. In number 13, they give us two equations. They give us a function of f, and they give us a function of g. So now when looking at our parts, we have to see what function they want us to plug in. So for part A, is that in function f or function g?
Function f.
Function f, because it says f of t, so that means we are using the f function. So I have f of x is equal to x squared minus 2x, but instead of x, it wants us to plug in t. So f of t is equal to t squared minus 2t. Can we simplify that? No, we can't simplify that. All we did was switch out the x's for a t. Remember, our answer is always a point, so our point would be t, comma, t squared minus 2t. Okay, always our x value and then our y value. In this case, it doesn't look like something you would plot because we don't know what the value of t is. So we would just leave it as is. Okay?
Yeah.
Part B, which function are we using, f or g? G. So let me go back up. So g is 3x plus 5. So g of x is equal to 3x plus 5. So that means instead of x, I'm going to be plugging in what? W plus 4. Am I going to plug that in with parentheses? Yes, because it is a two-term thing that I'm plugging in. So g of w plus 4 is equal to 3 times w plus 4. All I'm doing is switching out the x for that w plus 4 and then bringing down that plus 5. Can I simplify? Yes, what would I do with that 3?
You could multiply. So
Good.
3w plus 12.
Good, so I would distribute. I don't know why this is acting up. There we go.
So simple.
So distribute. So I have 3w plus 12, and then I bring down that plus 5. Can I continue to simplify?
Yes.
Good, so I have that 3w plus 17 because of that 12 plus 5. Okay. What would be my point?
W plus 4, comma 3W plus 17.
Correct. So remember my x, comma my y. Okay. For part C, what function am I using? F, good. So f of x is equal to x squared minus 2x. Okay, and now instead of an x, I'm going to be plugging in a what? Negative t, and will I plug that in using parentheses? Yes, okay. So f of negative t is equal to negative t squared minus 2 times negative t. Notice it's important to plug it in with parentheses because if I did not plug that in with parentheses, that negative that's attached to the t would not have been squared. Okay, so we could have had a mistake happen here. But since we use the parentheses, we know that this can simplify to what? What's negative t squared?
T.
T squared, right? Because the only thing that happened here is that negative times a negative turned into a positive. And then for the next part, we have negative 2 times negative t, which is
Plus 2T.
plus 2t. So that means we have the point negative t, comma, t squared plus 2t. Okay, remember our x and our y value. Okay. That look right? Okay. And then on to our last problem, number 14. Number 14, again, is all in one equation, so only using the equation of g. So for A, what is it telling us to plug in for x? An A, so it's just telling us to switch the variables. When we do that, will our equation change?
Nope.
No, we're just plugging in an A for an x. So g of x is equal to 4x minus 3. So if we plug in an A, we just get 4a minus 3. Meaning my point is A, comma, 4a minus 3. So this is my answer. So when we're just swapping variables, nothing happens. We don't got to simplify. We're just swapping out the two letters. Okay. Let me rewrite my equation down here. Okay, what are we plugging in for B? Good, x plus h. Am I going to plug that in using parentheses? Yes. So g of x plus h is equal to 4 times x plus h minus 3. Can I simplify? Yes, so what am I going to do to simplify? Distribute that 4. So I get 4x plus 4h and bring down that minus 3. Can I simplify any further? No, so that means my answer is x plus h, comma, 4x plus 4h minus 3 because our answer is always a point, x, comma, y.
When are you not going to put in a parentheses?
Like when we plug in? If we were just given one thing, such as like on part A, and I was just switching out an X for an A. Okay, that'd be the only time you wouldn't use parentheses. To be safe, just always use parentheses. Okay, to be safe, just always use them. So for example, in C, we would definitely use the parentheses here because of that negative in front of the X. So I have g of x is equal to 4x minus 3. Instead of an x, we're plugging in a negative x. So I have 4 times negative x minus 3. So the only thing I need to do to simplify this is to move that negative into the front. So I have negative 4x minus 3. And then I write my answer as a point.